right, everybody. We're back with another episode of the Love Marriage Fantasy Podcast. I am your co-host, Anton Leonard Claiborne. I'm your certified marriage facilitator, your relationship intimacy advisor, and your global relationship strategist. Here with me once again, as usual, is...
Hello, I am Coach Star Claiborne, the wife.
That's right. That's right.
I am your global relationship strategist, author, and pure romance consultant. I help women live their life with balance, fun, and building their confidence, especially in the bedroom. So today we have with us Mr. James Lampkin. Mr. Lampkin, will you take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience because they have been looking for the men to talk.
Good. Let's see. For y'all, it's good afternoon. For me, it's good morning. My name is James Lampkin. I host my podcast, Conversations with Lamp. You can find it on SoundCloud and Apple. I've been married next month will make 18 years. So that's pretty much my short bio.
All right. Okay. Good
cool.
enough.
So the 18 years of marriage, tell us a little bit about what led up to that and some of that story.
What led to us getting married?
Mm-hmm.
We first started dating like in 2001. We met, we started going out. Like in June. No, we started talking in June 2001. We went on our first date like August 2001, which wasn't actually a good date. We went to the movies. So for those listening, never go to the movies on the first date. I mean, I was only 21, so I didn't know. So
there's lots of reasons why that's a bad date, but why do you say it was a bad date?
Because we didn't really get a chance to talk to each other, get a chance to know who each other was, and plus I was really nervous, so it just wasn't a good first date at all.
Wow.
Yeah. So it proves you can't survive a bad first date.
Well, I was going to ask you. So did do you think that may have been a red flag that later led to the separation?
No. Because I was just nervous. Like it wasn't any, like it was just me being around her for the first time. I was nervous and it just didn't go well. We was in a movie, like we were supposed to go to like the 9:00 show. She was late. So we ended up making it to like the midnight show. It just didn't go well at all the first date. I mean, it wasn't like we had a bad attitude or anything like that. It's just I was nervous, and we went to see a movie, and it was just like, in a movie you can't talk. So we went to the movie, and it wasn't even like, again, I said we went to like the midnight show, so it wasn't like we could go grab nothing to eat afterwards. It was like we went to the movie and we went home. So
wow, yeah. Okay. So I don't know, that movie thing, I've had some bad experiences like that as well, where it was kind of uncomfortable trying to talk in the movie. But was it a bad movie where y'all didn't even have anything to talk about concerning the movie?
No, the movie was good. It was Rush Hour 2. The movie was fine.
Oh, okay. Comedy.
Yeah, a first date, just like, because I'm older now, I'm 41, so I know now you never go on a first date as a movie. You can go to the park, you can go get some ice cream, anything but a movie. It has to be something where you can talk to each other and get to know each other. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
All right, ladies, so pay attention to that. So if a guy offers to take you out on a date, and it's going to the movie, as far as the first date, I should say, you may want to change the plans or try to convince him to change the plans.
If she want to talk to him, she may not want to talk to him.
Yeah, right. Have you had any of those?
First date movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, first date to the movies is not good. Not good at all. Because like you said, you really can't get to know anybody. And then as a woman, we're just all emotionally in usually from the beginning. So it's it's like, okay, either we really want to get to know you or we're just emotionally in and just ready to go there. So it's one or the other.
Yeah.
So it's possible that she could have been a little nervous also. Do you think?
No.
No?
I don't think she was.
Oh wow. So you must have really been into her for you to be that nervous.
Well, I wasn't. I was, but I wasn't really used to dealing with a lot of women too, so that was a factor.
Okay.
But it was more her. Like it was just who she was. Like she's beautiful. At the time, I didn't know how smart she was. I just knew she was beautiful. It was a physical thing in the beginning. So
I can relate to that.
you all have been together, you said, for 18 years now. You've been married for 18.
Yeah, we've been together almost 20.
Ooh, okay, so tell us, and you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Is she an entrepreneur as well?
No, she works for a tech company, so.
Okay, well, that's a lot of hard work though.
Yeah, and I'm like me being an entrepreneur, I'm kind of like starting out, so I don't really call myself one yet because it's like I haven't really made an imprint where I feel like that's what I should introduce myself as.
Right.
So I'm just being honest about it, you know.
No, that's understood. So being that you're in that transition into the entrepreneur phase, let's just say it's a transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she clearly, I'm just gonna say, I already know if she's working in the tech field, she's just busy. That's just,
yeah.
Especially wherever we are right now and whatever this is we want to call it. How are you all like keeping it together in the household? Like, do you have kids?
We have a daughter. She's 9.
How are you all keeping that together? Like, because I'm sure there are parents that are trying to figure this out right now. Like, right?
Well, my wife works from home, so we get to spend a good amount of time together. Well, it's kind of weird because I do like I do Amazon part-time, so my schedule is kind of sporadic, but we spend some of the day together, and then some nights together. But I'll say this, to be honest, COVID, because there's no structure really, it kind of hurts us a little bit, because when we were back, we in California now, but when we was on the East Coast, I had a structured job, 9 to 5. We both had like 9 to 5s. So we knew what our time looked like. Whereas now, she doesn't punch a clock. She just she has meetings at certain times, but after her meetings, it's pretty flexible. So if she wants to say, all right, let's watch a movie or let's watch a show, it could be like 12 o'clock during the day. Now I need to be home. If I have a Amazon run and I'm not home, so it could kind of get weird, because like we in the house, you know what? This is the way I should sum it up. We're in the house together a lot, but we're not together, if that makes sense. Like, she's upstairs, I'm downstairs.
Uh-huh.
And it's weird because you're in the same house, so you feel like you're spending time together. But the reality is you're actually spending less time together because you're in the house and you're in separate locations. So.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of like us. Sometimes she's working downstairs and I'm upstairs, or it'll be reversed. So yeah, I know how you feel. But in a sense, you're right. It does seem like we're still spending time together because we're still in the house. So in passing, we'll say, "Hey, how's it going?" And then she might comment on something that she's having an issue with, and then I might do the same. We talk for maybe 3 minutes, and then it's back to doing
reality.
what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing, because you're both in the house so often. It's like you have a hard time making the time that you're together quality. It's just you in the same space, or like you said, you're in passing. So it's just not the same. Like when you know what your day looks like, on a set schedule, it's like, okay, I know from, like, I used to get home at like 5:30. So I knew 5:30, 6 o'clock, we're going to have dinner. 7, 6:37, we'll do something. And then I would record a podcast sometimes around like 9 Eastern. Just depends. But, excuse me, now it's just like, we winging it, and we winging it so much. It's just like there's no structure. Like sometimes you have to sit down and create the structure, which is something I struggle at. Like I'm not a person that's good at always creating my own structure. It's usually somebody creating it for me and I'm following it.
Okay, that's interesting. At least you know that about yourself, though.
I had to learn that.
Especially if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, I don't have my own structure. Let me get this together.
Yeah, so that's something I have to work on personally.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning when we were talking about, you meeting this wife that you have, and I know one of the reasons that we wanted to talk to you was because somewhere in the midst of this there was a separation.
Yeah.
And talk to us a little bit about what was going on that led up to that separation.
I think the biggest thing was we changed. Like people don't people say you don't change, and the reality is you do. Everybody changes. And my wife was evolving at a level faster than what I was evolving. And then we had a kid. So that changed because we were married 8 years before we had a kid. So that changed the way our marriage looked. Between just not communicating, not spending quality time together. Like when we first met, I was like more affectionate because that was something new to me. Like when I grew up, I didn't grow up around affection and hugs and stuff like that. So her introducing that to me made me give that to her in the beginning at a high level. But unfortunately, as we continued to stay in our marriage, it leveled off because I basically show who I really was. And at my core, I'm not an affectionate person.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, but she didn't, neither one of us understood that. And it took me years to figure that out. Like, okay, I was giving her something that I couldn't maintain. I couldn't maintain that level of affection I was giving her because it's just not in me. But because somebody giving you something new and exciting, it's like you want to give it back to them. So I was returning all that love and energy she was giving me, all that affection, all that quality time. And she was able to maintain that, but I just wasn't able to. Be it, just on my own personal issues, my own personal interests. So I just wasn't able to do it. And for a long time, we just kept dealing with it. And then eventually, after we had been married, let's see, it happened 2015. So after 12 years, we just couldn't do it anymore. So we had to separate.
So you guys decided to separate but not get a divorce.
No. We didn't get divorced. Okay. No. Well, of course we didn't. But the plan wasn't to get a divorce. The plan was to separate and see what happens. Divorce wasn't off the table, but
that's what I was trying to get to. Was
it wasn't. No, it was just let's try this first, like because we know we need space from each other. So that was the first option, was separation.
Okay. Wow, that's an interesting story. Because I'm saying that because while you were talking, I thought about how people say they may have been dating someone for a period, and then that person's representative started to fade away, and then they start seeing the real version of that person. But in your case, it wasn't where you were being fake. You wasn't displaying your representative, it was something you decided to do because you actually cared about this woman. You wanted to give her that affection. You wanted to try to meet her on her level. It wasn't something that you
You
was
know what?
pretending
I'm
to
gonna kind of stop
enjoy.
you. I'm gonna kind of stop you. I'm gonna stop you because actually, I kind of was. I actually kind of did send my representation.
Oh,
It just wasn't my intention. That's all.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Like I didn't set out to be this person who was loving and affection just to get her. It was just I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't grow up in a home with affection. Like I grew up with my mother and my stepfather. I had all my parents and they loved me, but they were not the affectionate type. So what my wife brought was something new to me. And in turn, with her bringing that new, that new affection, that new love that I've never experienced, it was exciting for me. So I was giving it back. But when somebody gives you something so long, eventually the excitement wears off and you get to who you really are. And at my core, who I really am, I'm just not an affectionate person. Like I'm a giver, I'm a loving person, but I'm not necessarily an affectionate person.
Mm-hmm. And y'all were able to once you identified what was going on, y'all were able to talk through it, and then you decided, well, maybe we should have a little bit of time alone so that we can figure out how we're going to move forward, if we're going to move forward.
Well, I wish it happened that way, but it didn't. We had a huge blow up, and that's when everything hit the fan. Like we had a huge blow up, and that's when we decided that it was time to separate.
Well, now I'm curious. So how did you? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask, did you know at the time that you were just trying to give something that you weren't sure how to continue giving, or was it something that you figured out during the separation?
It was something I figured out during the separation.
Okay.
And really, and I don't even know if I figured it out then. I think I figured it out like when we made amends, like when we had a real conversation, like, and I still had to keep looking at myself for what I could do better and what I was doing wrong. So.
Okay. So let me talk to the audience for a moment. So ladies, I don't know if you've noticed, but one thing that James mentioned was they did, it seemed as though they continued to communicate with one another. Am I saying that correctly? During the separation, y'all continued?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so ladies, try to keep that in mind. If you find yourself in a situation where you decide to separate from your partner, it would be helpful if you keep the lines of communication open, because that will give the two of you an opportunity to discuss what caused the relationship to go wrong. Try to keep that in mind. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, during that time and I know we kind of touched on this a little bit during the pre-interview. Mm-hmm. During that time y'all were separated, were you dating someone else, or was she dating someone else?
No. No. The purpose of the separation was not for us to date. Like, okay, I'll say this because you was giving advice to your listeners. In my opinion, just my humble opinion, the minute you start dating, you probably going to accelerate that process faster to your divorce because you introducing somebody new into your life. And I think we all know in the beginning, it's always good. So you meeting somebody at a vulnerable stage in your life, right, and they could if they bring in something that your spouse wasn't giving you, now you become attached to that person. So if you do find yourself working things out with your spouse, now what do you do with that person that you've introduced into your life? So that's why I don't recommend dating at all. Like if you feel like you need to date, then that says a lot about where you at in your marriage. Like I'm not an advocate for separation, let's be clear, but I understand life happens and you just need some time apart. But during that time apart, you should still be communicating with each other, working with each other, not exploring what your options are. So
okay, so that was never an option that y'all discussed.
No, that was not an option. Like we talked about it and we both said no, because I know we both said no. I don't know who said no first, but just for me, just for my ego purposes and the type of man I know I am, I'm pretty sure I said no first. So
but you both went into the separation with the clear purpose that we're not separating with the intent to divorce.
Right.
We're not separating with the intent to go and see what else is out there for us. We're separating with the intent to figure out what's going on with us and why are we needing this space? Why is this space going to be important to us?
Right.
Correct. And I think that makes a difference, because previously we did an episode that questioned, is it fair game during separation, right? And the question, I mean, and going back to it, I'm listening, and I think your situation can add perspective, because I agree with you that when you're going through a separation, you have to have that clear purpose as to what it means. But in the back of my mind, I would say, well, no, a separation is not an option, because if we're going to separate, we might as well divorce. Why put me through the pain of being apart from that person that I care so much about? And aren't we as a couple supposed to be able to stay and work things out to the best of our ability, right? But now listening to you, I'll be honest, it gives a different perspective to things. To me, I feel like if I was in that position, thinking back to when we had this podcast episode before, I would probably respond a little differently. To me, it makes it seem like, okay, we're going to reignite some things and go back to that initial dating phase and allow ourselves time to really talk about issues that could come up, and how we can really help each other during this time. And not being in the presence of that purpose allows you to release more tension than being in the emotions and the physical emotions of that person and just wanting to be physical with that person all the time. And I think having a separation, we're more concerned about whether or not that person is going to be physical with someone else at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, and just to add a little more clarity, like when we separated, it was kind of like, we don't know what we're going to do, but we know this is not working. So it was just like, we knew we had to do something. It was a drastic move. We had to do something. Like I said, we had a big blow up, and that changed everything. The only thing we discussed was, will we be dating other people? We both agreed we would not. So we established that boundary, that we wasn't dating other people. But other than that, it wasn't like, it wasn't we was trying to reignite anything, because we wasn't. Like, we just couldn't coexist anymore, basically. So the thing that did happen from the separation was we got a chance to step away from each other and evaluate what we each bring to the table. Because when you're with somebody so long, you can take for granted what they bring to the table. Like, for instance, like me, my wife was good with the finances. She's good with like the admin stuff. I'm terrible at that. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, I'm not a person that manages the finances and stuff like that. So when we did separate and I had to kind of do some admin things on my own, I realized, like, damn, this is something that she normally handles and I gotta handle it, and it's tough. And then with her, like, when during the marriage, I've always been the person that do like the grocery shopping, the little odds and ends stuff, which she's not used to doing. So when she had to do it for herself, that was a big adjustment for her. So it's just the little things that you bring to each other every day that you can take for granted.
I can see that for sure.
So it sounds like y'all, the two of you, knew you didn't want a divorce, you did not want to date anyone else, but more importantly, you did not want this to be a this separation to be something that gives you reason to uh, be apart from each other. It sounds like y'all were still like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Working together.
Connected, but
Yeah.
were separate.
Yeah.
Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's different than most people's separations.
It is.
So
and see,
tell us. So what was it? What was it that made y'all? I'm trying to put this in because
you know what? I'll just talk you through it. I'm gonna talk you through it because I think that'll help you better. So,
all right, go ahead. Help me out.
So when we separated, we were still seeing each other like every day because we have a daughter. But here's the thing with that. It was kind of like nothing had changed because we were separated, but we wasn't separated. If that, because we were still seeing each other, still doing the same routine. So technically we wasn't separated per se. Like we was under different roofs. So at one point during the separation, it became, okay, we're still doing the same thing. So we need to, I know you want to spend, my daughter's name is Nia. I know you want to spend time with Nia. So what we'll do, we'll have it, she'll split time with us. So that way we can kind of like give each other space.
Mm-hmm.
So we came to that decision to like, 7 days in a week, 1 week I have her 4, she have her 3, something like that. So that gave us the time to kind of like separate per se. Now that's when things kind of got tough because it started to look different. Like, okay, we're not really seeing each other. Like I wouldn't see her every day. I was, I may see her, but it was just, I would go, you know what? I wouldn't see her because some days I would just go pick my daughter up from the childcare, and we would go straight to where I was staying. So we wouldn't see each other every day. Now then maybe on a Friday, weekend or something, we would just say, all right, let's spend that day together. Let's do something with here. Yeah. So that was when it got the most challenging, when we decided to like really start moving separately. Because that wasn't how we moved. Like it was always as a unit. And we've been doing it that way for 12 years. And we were young. So when we first met, I was only 21. So I never really was a single man moving around, like thinking for myself, basically. I was 21 and I met her and we got married when I was 23. So I never really was single. It was just, that was really all I knew was partnership. So to be basically by myself was a big adjustment for me personally.
So y'all, that the time that y'all had by yourself, it helped you to really look at yourself and question, okay, why am I going through the separation? What is it about me that may have caused this separation? And what can I do to make this better if I want to make it better?
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of times some people think, when a couple gets separated, they meet, the first thing they think is infidelity. And that just wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. Neither one of us was concerned about that. We just stopped being we stopped being who each other needed. So, we had to take a step back. It was tough. Like, again, I don't advocate doing it, but I'm not an opponent either, because sometimes you have to really figure out what this person brings to you, what their value is to you, because you know, my wife is very valuable to me. Like after doing that separation, I realized how much she brings to me, and I didn't want to lose her. So
How long were you all separated?
9 months.
Okay.
9 months.
Almost the time of a birth, huh?
Huh?
I say it was practically the time of a birth.
Man, look.
y'all basically had a rebirth and rediscovered yourselves. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, because we figured out like we don't want to do that again. So if things don't work out again, we don't want to do that one no more.
All right, so this led the two of you to coming back together, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, y'all had to have another talk once y'all decided to get back together. I'm sure y'all talked and said, okay, well, let's consider what's going to happen before we get back together. All right, y'all had that conversation, but then y'all moved in together.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all moved back under the same roof.
Right.
So can you tell us what was that conversation like after you got back up under the same roof? I'm sure things were different. What was that conversation like? Like, what were y'all talking about once y'all realized, okay, we're back under the same roof, our family is back together. Have we really straightened everything out between us, or do we still have some issues? What was that conversation like early on after y'all got back under the same roof?
It wasn't, honestly, it really wasn't a long conversation. Because we knew what, like, we had a really long conversation to get back together, because at one point it looked like it was going to be over. So we had a long conversation during that process where it looked like it was going to be over. So it went from, because I had given up. Like I was like, you know what, I'm done. Like I don't want to do this no more. So when I called her and told her that, like, I think I'm done, that's when we had a real conversation about, you know, what's going on, where we at. And then we went from being done to, all right, we back together, and let's move back together. Because I told her, I said, look, like, if we're gonna do this, like, I'm not doing this separation another day. Like, it was like I can't remember what day of the week it was, but I was like, look, we're not gonna be separated tomorrow if we moving forward. So we you know, we talked, we had a long talk, and you know, we realized where we both went wrong. Like, there were some things that I was doing wrong. There were some things she was doing wrong. And, you know, we realized that we still loved each other, and we had a family together. And I'll say this too, like, I remember when I was a kid growing up, and you would see people say, there's no way I'm, like, how do this person stay? How did that person stay? And, you know, they say it's for the kids. And I'm like, nah, there's no way I'm staying for no kid until you have your own kid. And then when you have a kid yourself, you know, you understand why people will stay in situations longer than they should. And I'll even be honest, if my wife had called me and said, hey, listen, let's just figure this out together, but let's stay together for near, I would have did it. I wouldn't even have thought twice about it. I would have did it. Even though knowing it wasn't the right thing to do, I still would have did it, because I didn't want to disrupt my daughter's life. But I'm glad we never did it that way, because had we did it that way, we would have never fixed our issues.
Right.
We just would have continued down the same cycle, miserable, you know. We wasn't even, and it wasn't that we was miserable. It was just, we wasn't what we needed to be. And you know what? I'll say this. I wasn't miserable. I won't say she was miserable, but she was not getting the things she needed from me as a husband. So that can only last for so long. And then eventually my daughter would have got older and older, and she just would have been growing more and more resentful with each day that passed. Excuse me. So that's why it was good that we didn't do it the way that we didn't take the easy route, which would have been, let's just do this for Nia. Because a lot of people take that route, and trust me, I do not blame them. Like we all, you know, I don't know if you guys have kids, but when you have kids, you love your kids, and the last thing you want to do is disrupt their life because you're not getting along.
Right.
So
that's
why I realize it happens the way it do. But thankfully, we did the work to fix our situation.
So y'all had talked about all of that before you moved back into the same house.
Yeah, we had a long talk. Like you know, what she needed from me, what I needed from her, what she wasn't getting, what I wasn't getting. And at that point, that's when we understood where the person was coming from. Because we never really had that real we never, as crazy as it sounds, no, let me back up, because my wife did tell me things. I just wasn't getting it. You know, sometimes, you know, some people, it's unfortunate. Something has to happen for them to get the message. And for me, it was her leaving for me to get the message.
Okay. Well, I was trying to find out, were there any bumps, any little hiccups, any little glitches, or any issues after y'all got back under the same roof? So you're saying there was none of that? There was no. I mean, like within weeks after y'all got back together, was there something that y'all said, okay, well, wait a minute, maybe this might be a mistake, us getting back together? And if there was, how did y'all straighten it out? There was none? Wow.
No, it wasn't any hiccups, because we had an understanding of what went wrong.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. Y'all have some really good communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we had so much bad communication.
but that's what that separation time did for you.
Yeah.
All. That's what it did for you all. But
that's the problem. It was, the communication was so bad that just me taking a step back and figuring out, because and it's funny because I mentioned infidelity earlier. Like, sometimes as a spouse, you, especially, you know what, let me use myself. I'm gonna use myself. Like, we fall victim to all the, you know, the preconceptions about men. And my thinking was, I'm home every night, I'm taking care of my kids, I'm taking care of my family, I'm not out here cheating on you. Like, that should be enough. And that's not enough. Like,
right.
It's just not. Like, just because you're home every night doesn't mean you're not supposed to spend quality time with your wife. Like, you got to do that too. You got to be home and spend quality time with her. And for me, it was just like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, so I figured I was being a good husband. And it's not that I wasn't being a good husband, because somebody would have loved the things I was doing. But for her, it wasn't enough. And I respect that. She wasn't going to settle for what she didn't feel she deserved. And, you know, looking back, she was right, because I was capable of giving her more. She was capable of giving me more. So because she told me, she was like, there's things that I didn't give you because I knew you wasn't giving me all of you. So I wasn't going to give you all of me. So
again, I stand by what I said. That the communication the two of you have with each other is rare. You don't find couples who are able to. You don't often find couples who were able to survive a separation, and not only survive it, but y'all were able to stay connected during the separation, and I mean emotionally connected.
Yeah.
During the separation, and then get back together. That's rare. It doesn't usually happen that way. And y'all were able to avoid, bringing someone else into the mix.
Well, I was about to say, I think
so
it may have something to do with that. They were both very adamant about, no, we're going to separate, but we're not going to see anyone else. And like he said in the beginning, bringing somebody else into the relationship, all that, or I'm going to say relationship, well, in the separation, bringing someone else into the separation is just like dwelling on, well, this person is giving me what I was missing from this person, instead of allowing them the good time and the thoughtful time to really communicate about what they were missing from each other, because they had to take time to figure out what they were missing from one another.
Right.
You know, and I like the fact that you all chose not to bring anyone into the separation. However, I still would have to say that would be very hard as a woman, because most women are just like, if we're separated, what are we doing? Because we can figure this out under the same roof. But when you look back, it's like, well, you can, but it's almost saying, no, we each still need our time, and we still go through that personal growth, and we still go through these phases where we need our time to be by ourselves. And in your case, it was 9 months. In someone else's case, it may be, I need to get away for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, this is like going back to these hypothetical situations my husband be coming up with on these podcast episodes, right? But I will tell you, Mr. Lampkin, you're bringing some perspective to the female right now.
Well, and then
I'm gonna rethink some things from these hypothetical situations that aren't so hypothetical, I guess.
Nah, that's why this is my real life.
The thing is, y'all, a separation, just as you've proven, a separation doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship is going to die. And so you can a couple can go into a separation not knowing what to expect, but at the same time, I think, and this is how I feel, I think that you shouldn't put limitations on it as well. Because this is how I feel. If you're going to go through the separation, that person should be free to do whatever it is that they want to do. If
during the separation?
You
said they should be able to do what they want to do during the separation?
Yes. But if you put limitations on it, that's not a separation. You're still in a sense, you're still saying we're together. That's a separation. Is you get to go do what you want to do, I get to do what I want to do, and whatever happens during this separation, it happened because that's what I wanted to happen. You can't, and this is how I feel. You can't say if we're separated as my wife, you can't say, okay, Anton, you can't go and stay out all night partying with your friends and getting drunk and going to strip clubs or whatever. How could you say that to me when we're separated?
And that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so all right, so let's.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, that's true.
Okay,
and
go
that's
ahead.
Okay. I would say the same thing. But like you said, it sounds like with them, they went through a separation of being out of the same household, but they were still so connected that it wasn't really a full separation. I'm separating from you. It was, we're going through our personal growth, and this is how we're going to handle it. And I think
so, and then another thing, so you have to establish the ground rules. Like, okay, for instance, what you said, right? Because there were nights I went out and I stayed out a little longer than what I normally would have if we were married. I mean, not married, if we were, we were still in the same house. But I didn't entertain, I didn't like, okay, meet up with women and, do other things. Because again, like, I hear what you're saying, because in theory, you're right. It's just, come on, my man. You already know, you meet somebody in that first month, it's going to go well. Like, this. It's not, even if let's say if you out here saying, okay, I'm just going to explore my options. You may explore 6. Odds are one of them going to be good. And they'll be good, even if it's for even if it's for a couple months. Let's just say it's you had a good time for a couple months and it didn't work out. But that's a woman who now, woman, or I'm gonna say woman because I'm talking to you as a man. That's a woman who has a piece of you. Like she has that. And if you out with your wife, you know, you didn't want to say nothing to your wife about this during the separation. But everything going good. Y'all back under the same roof, everything good. And you walking through the mall or you sitting down at a restaurant, and who come in? This chick you had this 2 or 3 month fling with, you didn't tell your wife about. And now because you didn't tell her, now she's going to question everything that happened during that separation. And you right back where you started, probably worse, because now, one thing my wife did do was trust me. So now I done lost the trust I had because I didn't tell her about this other woman.
Right.
And it's like, it's not worth it. Like, if you going into this separation saying, I want to explore my options, trust me, you're going to find a good option. Now, it may not be an option that you want to deal with for a long term, but as a man, what you're looking for is like, okay, it's probably going to be sex. Let's just be honest. And that's not, despite what people think, sex is not hard to come by.
Right.
So you can get that. It's new sex. Just, it's a woman who's showing you some new attention that you feel like your wife wasn't giving you. Like, see, this is what I was missing from her. This woman, this new woman gonna cater to you, gonna do everything because it's new. Like, right. That's why every relationship, you're not gonna know what that real relationship is until probably a little over a year, maybe even 2. You're not going to know what that relationship really looks like until at least you have a real fight. That's number one. Right. You got to have a real fight. Until you had a real fight where I'm not talking about physical or nothing like that. I'm talking about to the point where you're questioning, all right, do I really want to move along with this person? Your relationship is not stamped until that happens. Like for us, it was, we would go through these little phases because I was immature. We both were, but I'll say me because I was only 21 and I had no idea what a relationship looked like. So every 3 months we would go through this phase where she wanted to break up. And we would figure it out But then we moved together once. We moved together like 9 months in. And then 3 days, I don't even know if it was 3. I didn't even get my bag unpacked good, and we got into a bad fight. Like I to the point, I packed my car and I was leaving and I was done. And she came to the door and told me, "Come back," and we talked. And then we never had another fight like that again. So yeah, you can't. I hear what you're saying, but no, if you really trying to work on your marriage, do not entertain other people. Like, it's hard. I get it. You don't, I mean, we still like.
I agree with you.
We still had like. I'm being transparent. We still had sex and things like that. It's just it wasn't. Was it the same? No, because it's almost kind of like, after a while, it's like, okay, well, let's make sure nobody does nothing crazy. So you give them a little mercy sex just to hold them off, I guess. So
what you're describing is not the same thing that I was saying. What I was saying was, for me, if I'm going to go into a separation, we're not having sex, because to me, that's not a separation.
I would agree.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Right. So then, along with that, you can't tell me who I can see and who I can't see, where I can go and where I can't go. If I allow you to do that, if I agree to those terms, baby, we're not separated. We're still.
You know what? And you know what? Together. I can't even.
And if I agree to those terms, of course, I'm not going to go out trying to be intimate with another woman, because I know I agree to these terms that I'm not going to go out seeing someone else. So I'm not going to put myself in a place where I would be tempted by another woman.
I think it all boils down to when you decide to separate, and I do my air quotes because a separation for each relationship is going to be different.
Okay, let's just say
that's right.
You
That's
and your partner have to decide what is going to work for your separation. And I think in their case, they did it. And I actually commend you all for what you did, because I'm like, if we're separated, it's fair game. It really is, because my biggest question would be, why can't we just work this out under the same roof? I don't understand why we got to go in separate living quarters and try to work this out. Like, I don't get it. Unless there's a different perspective that's brought into it, which honestly, Mr. Lampkin has given me a little bit of a different perspective, just a little bit. I'd have to go a few more episodes and think some more, right?
And see, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I said I'm not an advocate for separation, because everybody is going to look different. Person.
And I think every relationship, they have to have that
communication. And I don't even debate what he said, because like, usually that's what a separation is. Like, I'm gonna go out here, I'm gonna do what I do, and you do what you do. But
is
we handled it.
That's a divorce to me. If we're not gonna even have communication with, we might communicate, but if we're not gonna even try to be intimate with each other or try to find any more common ground, like, what are we doing? What's the point of separating? Why not just divorce? Goodbye. We're gonna do what we want to do.
And that's what I'm saying. See, we just got to a point where we couldn't coexist under the same roof.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that we didn't love each other? It wasn't none of that. And one thing we did not do either. We didn't tell people we were separated. Like, those
that's smart.
Yeah.
Everybody, the people who knew, like, it was because they had to know. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like I had to tell my immediate family, because that's my family. I needed to tell them. And my guys that I consider brothers that I talk to and interact with daily, they knew. But I didn't go on social media and make the post. Not that I'm separated, but you know that post where people read it and like, what the hell going on with them?
Right.
So
right.
I didn't make that post. She didn't make that post. We just understood where we were at. And we both, like, while we were not giving each other what we need value-wise, we still knew somebody else would see the value in us very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So like, my wife knows if I hit the streets as a single man, I'm not gonna have no problems getting a woman. Just like if she hits the streets as a single woman, she's not gonna have no problems getting a man. I know this. So that's why I don't want her single. I know what kind of cat she is. And I know if a guy gets to, really gets to know her, I'm gonna have to compete with this dude, because he ain't going nowhere. Like, my wife's not the type of woman you just date and say, okay, it was a good time, babe. We done. Nah, if you get a chance to meet her and interact with her and all that stuff, he gonna want to stay with her just like I did. So why would I want to give any man that option? Just like she knows me. She knows I'm not the type of man you want to make a boyfriend. I'm the type of man you would want to marry. So we both been married a long time. We both are marriage material. We're both good partners. So we both knew, like, just because we not getting along, we already knew somebody would jump in a heartbeat. So you can't do that.
Okay, so now that we've talked about that, I understand why the two of you made an effort to stay connected.
Yeah,
you if the goal, when you separate, you have to understand, what are you separating for? if the goal is we were separating with the goal to get back together. I know it sounds crazy, but we just hit a point in our marriage where it just wasn't working anymore, and we had to do something different. And that something different was giving each other space. As hard as it was, that wasn't something easy to do, but we had to do it, because had we not done it, we wouldn't be where we are.
I think many separations that occur, they happen because people are trying to learn if this relationship is what they really and truly want. So they go into the separation saying, all right, this is my time to decide, do I want to be married, settle down, or is there something else out there for me?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into a separation like that, I don't think people sit down and say, well, we're at the point where we're going to try and work things out. I don't think they go into it like that. I think they go into it saying, we're going to separate, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
You all didn't do that.
Right.
You all said, okay, we're going to separate, but we have the intentions of figuring out how can we make this work.
Yeah.
And I think that made a huge difference.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that was good. So, you have any more questions?
No, I was just going to ask you. So, can you give our audience any tips or any words of wisdom as we wrap this up on how they can survive a separation or how they can avoid the separation?
Avoid it? Honestly, no. I don't have no tip on that, because that may be the road you destined to travel down. So
okay,
I don't have nothing for that.
What about surviving?
Surviving one,
yeah.
Okay. So if you the one way you're going to survive is when you separate, you have the purpose of getting back together. That's number one. If you separating just to bide your time and say, okay, I'm going to explore my options, I'm just going to wish you good luck. Because chances are during that time, you're going to find somebody who meets your needs at that moment and can probably meet your needs for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem with that is, if you do decide to get back with your spouse, you have now introduced a new person into your life. Now, it may not seem like a big deal to you, but your spouse will want to know if you was out here having sex with somebody, or whatever you was doing. Like, I think they should know that. So you got to be careful how you moving. Like, if you separating to get back together, then keep that in mind. Stay in constant communication. Now, there will be times where it's going to be tough, and you have to give that person their space, and you have to do that. But you also need to, like, ask yourself, are you really committed to this? Like, do you want to be married? Like, ask yourself that honest question. It's a simple question, but it's an honest question. Do you really want to be married? And if you're questioning if you want to be married, that's an issue. Like, because or just be honest and tell yourself no. Like, marriages had, like, despite what people want to believe, marriages had expiration dates on them. Like, it could have, that person could have been great for 1 year, 2 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever that time period was. And you're just not compatible anymore. Like, people change. Like, that was something that I said in the beginning. People change, and people don't want to, like, acknowledge people really do change. Like, you're not the same. I'm not the same person at 21 who my wife met. So we've both evolved as people. So sometimes during that evolution, you may not work well together anymore. So that's the reality.
All right. Yeah, that was some good advice right there. And I think the most important thing about that is to accept that people change over time. So embrace that idea when you're considering to enter into a marriage. Just embrace the fact that both of you are going to change.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Lampkin, this was fun. You helped us to reconsider some things that we had talked about in previous podcasts.
Yeah, I wonder
That's
if we
good.
did the episode again, if I'll feel different. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I don't know. But I did.
That's
get
what
some
life
insight
is,
as a
perspective.
female. I did get some insight as a female. That's. I'm gonna
Okay.
say good job on your behalf, Mr. Lampkin.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
That's what life is, provide new perspective.
That's right. That's right. So you want to tell our audience how they can listen to your podcast, and once again, tell them how they can listen to your podcast.
Sure. Again, thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Instagram at conversations_with_Lamp. I'm also on Facebook, Conversations with Lamp. The podcast is called Conversations with Lamp, and it's on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, we certainly do appreciate you yet again, and we look forward to everyone listening in to the next podcast episode. Be sure to go to subscribe, like, and share, all that good stuff.
All right. We'll talk to y'all next time.